Welcome back to the Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush. Today's story is about Chris Mellon. Chris Mellon has found himself, front and center of the UFO phenomena in recent years. Since about 2017, 2018, when Leslie Kean released her articles with the New York Times about the ATIP program, Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, and the To the Stars Academy, which was created back then, seemingly to release some of these photos and do some sort of projects within the UFO community. Now, when Chris Mellon, who was a former government employee, along with Lou Elizondo, a former government employee, as well as other persons associated with To the Stars that happened to be, some of them seemed to work for Lockheed Martin, some of them were people that were directly involved in some of these UFO events, naval personnel and things such as that. He also brought us interviews with David Fravor. He's also brought us people like David Fravor. And so since 2017, Chris Mellon has really exploded onto the UFO scene. And we just really want to talk about where we are today with Chris Mellon, where Chris Mellon came from, some of his legacy, his family. A lot of people don't know the rumors around Chris Mellon and his family. Many people speculate that his family was directly involved in the creation of the CIA. Some people believe that he had family members or relatives on the Council of Majestic 12, the supposed council of members that oversee the UFO situation. Supposedly it was created in the 1940s after the Roswell event. But one thing is certain, the CIA was created just after the Roswell event in that sort of time frame. Chris Mellon has a vast family history, going back to the 1800s with Thomas Mellon and his Mellon banking family dynasty. The bank went on to merge many years later with the New York Bank. It's still in operation today, the New York Bank of Mellon. They ended up acquiring Gulf Oil, if you remember that company. It's a multi-billion-dollar oil company. That company then merged with Chevron. So back in the early 1900s, his family was extremely wealthy. One of his family members, Andrew Mellon, ended up becoming another prominent banker. He became the U.S. Secretary of Treasury for 11 years. Right before the massive financial collapse in the 1930s. So if you can imagine your family having a direct hand in the economic situation that led up to the Great Depression, and then during the Great Depression, it was estimated that his family in 1937 had hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, I believe it was valued at about $4 billion in today's money. So if you can imagine your family having a direct hand in the financial situation that led up to the Great Depression, and your family has a holding of $4 billion, while mothers literally sell their children to pay rent. This is an extremely prominent family. They have their hands in oil. One of the family members was a majority shareholder of Pan Am, so Pan American Airlines. Pan Am was since bought by CSX. So if you ever see those commercials on TV for CSX transportation or cybernetics or railways or anything like that, logistics, that's the company that ended up buying Pan Am. So you really have this massive family legacy of judges, Secretary of Treasury. They married into a lot of politicians. They married into the Lemire family. This family dynasty, which includes people like William Lemire Mellon Sr., who was a co-founder of the Gulf Oil Company that was later acquired by Chevron or merged with Chevron. They have deep political ties. His family members have been diplomats for foreign countries, ambassadors to foreign countries. They've married into congressmen and senators, judges. These are major mover and shakers in the United States and abroad, specifically in Britain. We know that some of his family members had written biographies for members of the royal family, so they literally were, head and shoulders with the aristocracy. I think that's really why Chris Mellon is such a prominent figure, why he's talked about so much, why it seems to be so important that he is participating in this. I think his family legacy, it's billions of dollars. He had a recent family member that died in the 1980s that was on the Forbes top 500 list, I believe ranking in the 300s of most wealthy individuals in the world. I believe at the time in the 80s, they estimated the value of this family member was in the $1.2 to $1.4 billion range. So if you can imagine, you've got 8 billion people on the planet, at the time closer to 7 billion people, and you're in the top 500. In fact, you're in the top 400 richest people in the world. This family has close ties with Yale University. They have created some extremely wealthy companies. They have majority share ownership of some extremely wealthy companies. Essentially, when you have a person that's this well connected to what you might call the establishment or the government or the aristocracy, or however you really want to call it. These are people that fund and open hospitals like in Haiti. These are people that fund and open museums. These are people that have multi-million dollar pieces of art. I know one painting way back in the 1900s was sold for something like $500,000, which it's accrued and is now worth multi-millions of dollars. This family is so well connected to government, U.S. Secretary of Treasury, and politicians. Chris Mellon's other family members include Matthew Taylor Mellon II, and he, unfortunately, I believe he passed away recently. But I believe he was one of the founding members of Jimmy Choo. So if you know that luxury brand, most people do, you're talking about extremely, influential and powerful people that are well connected to government, they're well connected to industry. If there are any families in the United States that would have any sort of knowledge about the UFO phenomena, about these technologies, where they come from, it would be the Mellon family. This story is not about Christopher Mellon's family. This story is about UFOs. And I believe the reason the UFO community has latched on to Christopher Mellon's family and his own background is because of how interconnected they are with politics, big money. They had some stake in General Electric at one point in time, who we know have these multi-billion-dollar contracts directly from the federal government. When you have people that have these major interest in, government programs, politics, when they are marrying senators and congressmen and judges, when they have multi-billions of dollars, when you have a family like this that is so well established in the American hierarchy, I think that it gives more credence to the assessments by these people, because if anybody knew that this was all going on, Chris Mellon would have been one of those people. His history in government, he was the former minority staff director for the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. So you have a person that's going to be read in to some of the most top secret intelligence reports that the United States generates. He later on became the Deputy Assistant Director for the Secretary of Defense for Intelligence during the Clinton and Bush administration. So if you can imagine, this is the type of person that would rub shoulders with people like John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, and George Bush. This is a major, interconnected family, and his record with government, if anybody in government would know about this sort of thing, it's going to be Chris Mellon. He was read into the most secret programs, and he had access for some time. When you see him associate himself with the To the Stars Academy after he leaves government, and they are releasing these videos, or they are at least partially responsible for releasing these videos of these anomalous objects, and now you have him directly involved in, releasing information with Lou Elizondo and David Fravor and all these other military eyewitnesses. It lends a lot more credibility to the information that's coming out. The reason we're talking about Chris Mellon today is because just recently he released some photographs of some text messages that he was having with another supposed government employee. Now, they redacted some information. We don't know who this employee might be, but they are talking about these crash retrieval programs and getting the information out of the government, getting access to it. And so I'm going to read you these now. So the first says, it says, blank and I are making huge progress in getting into the CR program, which is alleged to be the crash retrieval program. He plans to meet with you at some point. The blank would be slack-jawed if they found out what we now know. Now, this says it's a senior United States government official. It says Chris Mellon's response to this was blacked out. It says, right now we haven't gone that far back. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 1950s. So if you don't know, the Kingman, Arizona crash, allegedly, there was a live extraterrestrial that was captured and brought to a base that later became known as Area 51. That was part of the Kingman, Arizona crash. It was alleged that at least one creature was captured alive. Now, whether that's true or not, I can't say. I wasn't there. But he says that we're vacuuming up info as blank gets read in. We now know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the crash retrieval. Once again, the crash retrieval is written as C/R. So the ownership of the crash retrieval. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. We also know that a still highly classified memo by the Secretary of the United States Air Force in the 1950s is still in effect to maintain the cover on UAPs. We also know that the SE-2, who's the Air Force's gatekeeper. So what do you think? Does Chris Mellon have the goods? Does he know what's actually going on? They make mention of being read into the program. They make mention of knowing who controls what information. They make mention of knowing how their security system works. So how the functionality of this hierarchy and how this information is maintained and protected. In my opinion, if anybody in the United States knows how this secrecy is kept, it's going to be people like Chris Mellon, which is why these sorts of posts on Twitter, these sorts of messages that are released to the public, the videos that were released from To the Stars Academy, that's why this information is so inflammatory to the UFO community. You have a person that comes from a multi-billion-dollar family, well connected to United States government, former United States Secretary of Treasury, former judges, former politicians, close ties to the Clintons and the Bush administration. If you have anybody that is served in government that might have direct knowledge or access to a UFO crash retrieval program, or direct knowledge or access to any of the information that's obtained from the UFO phenomenon, it would be people like Chris Mellon. And I think that's why this case is so important. I think that's why these updates that Chris puts out on Twitter are so inflammatory. We just need more information. As this information comes out, we get exposed to more and more each and every day by former ranking members of the United States government. And we are thankful that this information is finally coming out, and we appreciate it. We are ready to scrutinize any further information as it comes along and sort of vet this to find out what's really going on. If you'd like to support our channel, there'll be links in the description below as well as in the pinned comment. That's the unacceptable news. Don't like, Don't subscribe, just run.